Okay, so Memo will talk about his recent experience on using local sensors, and the title is Building to Learn or Learning to Build, and how sensors can shape our cities. So Memo, you can start.
Thank you, LJ. Can you see my first slide?
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you for the opportunity to talk. My name is Memo Cedeno. I work at the Healthy Buildings program here in Boston. And well, it's for me a privilege to have worked with LJ and Sean and many other colleagues of your team in the past year. And thanks to you, this experience, I've been I've been lucky, I think, to understand the value of this relationship. That is, in principle, academic, but it's also, I think, a relationship that transcends that. So I'm thinking that what makes this collaboration very strong is this concept that by building the sensors, we learn, right? So this is a very practical learning experience. We build the sensors and we learn, but by building, by learning and using these sensors, we are actually learning how to build our buildings because we're learning a lot on how our buildings work and what are the challenges that the future might hold for our build environment. So let me tell you, this is the overview of my talk. I'm gonna go pretty quickly. And I wanna tell you why I think sensors matter. I wanna also mention what kind of sensors matter. So I think this will relate to Dr. Peng's talk. And finally, I will show you some examples of how we're using these sensors in a way that to me, shows how important your sensors are and your work is to help the issues that our world has. So why sensors matter? I think that an advancement in sensor technologies has allowed us to really characterize our built environment by measuring data at an unprecedented rate. This is, I think, particularly important because we live in a world that is facing conditions that has never seen before. This is very important, and not only important, this is an existential threat to our existence. Many people is already suffering from the consequences of climate change. So it's very important to understand it and especially act upon it. So we know that we are responsible for it and we should do something about it. And when we start out the conversation about sensors, something that comes into our mind is the concept of smart cities. And obviously, this will have a lot of potential by connecting all our devices, our automated cars, our electricity grid, and that will lead to, I would say, a lot of efficiencies. But I don't think that's the real reason why sensors matter. So I actually went into the internet and looked for smart cities, and this is just a sample of the images that I found. And I don't know if in the audience you can identify a common pattern between these images. To me, the most striking thing is that in none of these cities you can see people, right? So the solution from the technology side is to have a city without people, and that to me is pretty interesting because urbanization is happening in a very different way. This is a picture of how billions of people actually live. This resembles this is a closer look at reality. And the truth is that at the pace that we are urbanizing our world, 3 million people move to cities every week, right? So the question is, are our cities ready? Are our buildings ready to face the challenges of this major shift in urban population? So just a couple of more statistics. 50% of the buildings that will exist in 2050 already exist now in the developed world. And for the developing countries, we're building at a rate that only is actually caring to meet current conditions. We're not thinking about what the future conditions might actually be, and these are pretty demanding and put a lot of stress on the existing built environment. So an example of that is what happened during Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma last year here in the U.S. So Hurricane Harvey created precipitation for a period of 5 days in the more than 50 inches for some parts of the Houston metropolitan area. That is amazing. And these are just a couple of comparisons of how much water actually fell during those days. So it's almost 19 times the discharge of the Mississippi River, which is something pretty incredible to understand. Then after the flooding happens, all series of health consequences follow, right? So we have destructive homes that are full of water in their furniture, in their structure, and the next wave of health outcomes is present. In this case, for example, due to mold. However, the consequences extend, and for example, for Irma that happened only 2 weeks after Harvey, we saw that it was compounded by a heat wave. So after the rain stopped, a heat wave started, a very high levels of heat. And what happened? That because of a power outage, the vulnerable population starts suffering the consequences. So people that sometimes live on their own and no one is taking care of them actually are at the risk of dying. Heat waves is another aspect of the built environment that we are struggling to understand what will be all the consequences. Mortality is among one of them, but it's not the only one. And we see that this is a phenomenon that repeats over and over in different parts of the world. So I think these news are very relatable to what you see over there in Taiwan. This is something common. We even see it here in Houston, in Boston. That is a city used to more mild temperatures. So just to give you an idea of what these challenges will be, by the year 2070, we expect the triple of days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer. So the question is also, what sensors matter? Because obviously there's within the area of sensors a lot of different types. And this is just a picture of the number of stations available measuring PM 2.5 in the US. So the data set says that there are almost 1,400 active stations. And you know, these are installations, these are devices that are very high quality, that have a very strict set of quality assurance and quality control procedures. And thanks to them, really, we have been able to develop a full body of knowledge on the effects of particulate matter on our health. Is that bothering you? Okay, well, I'll continue. So for you to put in perspective how inspiring is the location-aware sensing system, the last framework for us is to show the size of Taiwan compared to this. And we know that the PM2.5 monitoring network that you have over there is one of the largest in the world. I think it's reaching close to 4,000 nodes. So to me, this is a lesson that the sensors that matter are the ones that are installed, are the ones that are giving us data. Sometimes the data is not perfect. We strive to make it as good as possible, but in many cases, the most useful thing is to have readings of a phenomenon that we still don't understand. And back to the question about heat. This is exactly what we were trying to do, to understand what is, for example, the effects of temperature by using low-cost sensor networks. So one example of this is what we did 2 years ago here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where we tried to characterize what were those heat effects in population that is normally considered immune to the effects of high temperature. So to do that, we used available commercial sensors to characterize the indoor environment, and we use wearable devices to measure some of the behavioral parameters of the population that we tested. So we took advantage of a natural study opportunity that it was a heat wave in this area of Cambridge in Massachusetts. And we followed 44 participants before a heat wave, during a heat wave, and after a heat wave in two types of buildings, one without air conditioning and the other with air conditioning. And throughout the period of 12 days, we measure all these parameters of that characterize health and behavior, their physiology, and their environmental aspects of their sleeping environment. Throughout these 12 days, we administered two sets of cognitive questionnaires, an addition subtraction test and the Stroop test, that is to identify the right color of the word shown in the screen, and measured the reaction time to this test. Then also we made a very high resolution log of hydration to know what were the liquid consumption patterns of this population. We were able to recently publish this story, and basically we found that this population that is considered immune is not really that vulnerable and not that, let's say, immune to the heat. It really suffers, and there were significant and substantial losses in cognitive function during this period of the heat wave. Thanks to the sensors and to the very dense array of parameters that we measured, we were able also to identify what are the ideal temperatures for cognitive function, which are shown here to be optimum between 22 and 23 degrees Celsius. On another project that I wanted to show to you is what we're doing in Houston, Texas, with measuring the air quality of homes flooded after Hurricane Harvey. So this is in collaboration with LJ Chen and his team, and also with Jason Wang, from whom you will hear a little bit in the next few minutes. Basically, the risks of the flooding are immediate because of all the damage, but then they also extend to a long period of time because of the damage of malls and other things that happen after the flooding is over. So, for example, in this project, we're using a custom sensor package that the Academia Sinica helped us prepare, that is measuring temperature, relative humidity, PM2.5, and total volatile organic compounds. And this is a picture of one of the homes that we are monitoring right now. You can see that it's in the middle of construction, and this is important because people that don't have resources have to live in their homes. Their kids have to sleep in this environment while all the construction is taking place. So we hypothesize they are exposed to a lot of contaminants that they shouldn't be exposed to. So I was in Houston earlier this week to finalize the first phase of the monitoring. And I was surprised to see the big difference in PM 2.5 concentrations in the flooded homes versus the non-flooded homes, and equally so the difference in concentrations in total volatile organic compounds. So for VOCs, I actually had to change the axis of the graph so that we could plot in the logarithmic scale what the difference in these places are. So for you to have an idea, in the parts per billion, flooded homes have a mean of 250 parts per billion, while the non-flooded homes have an average of about 20 parts per billion. So one order of magnitude difference. Finally, the last case study that I wanted to show you is this global cognitive function study that we have started this year, and that aims to recruit 100 buildings across the world in a period of 3 years. We have so far recruited 10 buildings, including China and in the UK, and we are starting soon buildings in Mexico, India, and Australia. So a key component of this study is the use of an environmental monitor that was also developed in collaboration with Academia Sinica. And this sensor measuring temperature, also relative humidity, carbon dioxide, PM 2.5, and 3 channels of light will be installed in, again, 100 buildings, but we are at 1/10 of that recruitment purpose. So long story short, you have seen how we're using your technology, your developments, your achievements to characterize our environment and the influence that this environment has on our health. So I am a true believer of the empowerment that this community gives to people by giving data that then drives decisions. So I hope that we can keep this loop in which we learn to build and we build to learn. And that's it. I don't know if there's time for questions.